And action. Okay, today we are going to be exploring what it's like behind the scenes creating a zine. I am currently in the process of creating my first zine with some of my photographs, and I thought, why not make a video to help other photographers or people interested in photography see the process and what it's like to look at your photos in a different perspective, from a different perspective. So yeah, before we start going into the process, I kind of want to give you an idea of why even create a zine, because you're probably wondering, well, why the heck do I care about this? And I'm going to tell you why. Because I think it's important as photographers, we're storytellers at heart. I mean, cliche as it is, but you're using images to tell some type of narrative, whether it's fashion or street or journalistic or even abstract photography. We're all telling stories, and I think especially in this digital age, it can get a little bit muddy when you're taking photos just to take photos. I'm so guilty of it. I mean, I took a step back from doing that because I wanted to see how I could push myself and think about taking photos in a new way. And I always came back to, and I've heard a lot of photographers, especially ones that I admire, who create content on YouTube, talking about printing your photos. And I think there's something really interesting about taking something that we're so used to having digitally and on social media and on our phones, on our computers. Editing, everything is a very digital process, and taking that and making it more tangible and something that you can feel and use your senses with. And so, yeah, I thought, all right, well, if I'm going to print my photos, let me make a zine and tell a story with this. I definitely feel like this process has given me new perspective on how I take photos and make images. I think it helps you focus and become more clear about the story you want to tell. I know for me, it's helped me be intentional when I'm photographing. Like, how does this relate to the story I want to tell in these photos? Is this going to help it, or am I just doing this because I think it'll make a great photo? And that's sometimes a tricky place to be in as a photographer, because, you know, you go out wanting to be creative just to do it. But I think we all have a little bit of us, me, I don't know about everybody, but that wants that validation that you're doing something good and creatively doing something good, and that people will understand and appreciate. So yeah, I think making this zine will help me get more clear on what I like making just because. And this zine is personally for me. I'm not doing it for anyone, but I think it's more for me to be able to look back on a part of my life and say, yeah, that was a cool time, and I'm glad I made a little photo book out of it, essentially. So hopefully this video and the process that I'm doing will give you some inspiration or allow you to think a little bit differently about how you're taking your photos. So let's get into it. Okay, so supplies you're probably gonna need for this process is definitely a camera, and if not, a phone with a camera, any type of camera. You're gonna need scissors. You're also gonna need a little book, nothing too big, just about A4 size or smaller if you want. And tape. Washi tape works great because you can take it off and put it back on and it doesn't rip the pages. And a pencil, a nice little pencil and eraser, so you can make little notes in your book or on the side or on some of the photos themselves. A printer, and if not a printer, a place where you can get images printed on paper. You could use Photoshop or not, but you can use anything like some PowerPoint presentation thing. They have them in Google, they've got them in Word, whatever you want to use to put all of your images into something smaller on a contact sheet. And that should be about it in terms of supplies. Fairly simple, nothing too hard. And yeah, then you can get started. Right, okay, so diving into the process. This video is not going to be about how to do it in Illustrator or use any of those. This is going to be definitely something more accessible for anyone who has any type of camera. You could be using your iPhone, your digital camera, your film photography, whatever. I wanted this to be something that's a little bit less digital in that sense of creating the zine in the first drafts or the second drafts, or just doing it totally without any type of screen. But it is also something you can use in a part of the process if you do use Illustrator or Photoshop or anything like that when it comes to putting the zine together. I didn't actually have an idea in mind for a zine, so my process was kind of going through photos I already had, because to be honest, I hadn't been taking a lot of photos this year that I thought were worthy of making a zine, or I didn't have any direction as far as what I was photographing. It was more just like a release, taking photos. So I didn't have anything in mind. So I think if there's anyone out there that's like, yeah, but I don't have anything, you can always go back and look at your old photos. I highly recommend it, because you'll be surprised at the photos you thought you didn't like or that weren't really anything can become something. I know for me, I was able to go through a whole bunch of photos from the past 4, 5, 6 years, and I just started looking at the ones that I thought were interesting, and I hold them all together. And then that's when the ideas started coming, and I was like, okay, I actually have enough from that time that I spent in that small town to make a story out of. Or I have another, it actually gave me a few ideas for zines. I was looking at, I actually take a lot of photos of birds, looking up. Take a lot of pictures of my feet on the floor, or just a bunch of things started flowing because I wasn't putting any restrictions on what the story was going to be. I just allowed the space to create. And from that, then the stories came. So I think be kind to yourself. Look at your photos and give them another chance. And don't judge anything. Just go through some of your archives and have a look and say, that's actually interesting. Don't think about it. Don't try to make a story right away. Just put all of those interesting photos together in a file. And then once you've done that, then you can go and get it printed. That's exactly the process that I did. So once you get everything into a folder, you can make a contact sheet. And if you're not familiar with what a contact sheet, it is basically back when photography wasn't digital and you were using film, you had to get your film rolls developed, and obviously you wanted to see what they would look like in print before you blew it up into a large print. You wanted to see the whole roll. So photographers would take that film and make a tiny piece of print on photo paper with the whole roll on it, and they would call that the contact sheet. So it would show you every single photo from your 36 or your 24 film roll, and you can go through and edit that way. There's similar things you can do in Photoshop that are like that, which I've used to help me keep the images small, and I can actually show you. So when I was taking out images or putting them together in the folder, I was able to make a file. I had over 300 photos. But anyways, I put the photos on I just did this on a piece of paper. You basically just have the photos in smaller. Doesn't have to be perfect. Doesn't have to be on photo paper. You can literally get it on Xerox paper at your local print store or a printer at home if you have. Print in color if your photos are in color, or print in black and white if they're in black and white. I think it helps to see them in full color, but just print them small. They don't have to be 4x6s. They don't have to be these big images, because what you're essentially doing is just looking at the photo and deciding whether or not it's something of interest to cut out. And that's what I did. I started cutting out photos that spoke to me, and I thought, okay, this is interesting. This particular zine that I'm working on right now, I started thinking about what was interesting about that period of time, and I just started cutting out all of the photos that I had taken in that period of time living in that small town, and went from there. And I'm not gonna lie, it's been a process. I am not fully, like, I've had days where I've taken quite a few breaks, but take a break. It doesn't have to be done in a day. It doesn't have to be done. The more time you spend with the photos, the better it is, because then you can really start to see like what those photos are trying to tell you, or what the story is trying to unfold. So take your time. It doesn't have to be fast. It doesn't have to be quick. It can be as slow as you want it to be. This process has literally taken me, well, if we're technically talking about the time I decided to the time of acting on it, a long time. But from the time of actually printing the photos, buying a little book, and putting the story together, I would say like a solid month and a half maybe, of just looking at the photos, cutting them out, procrastinating. And yeah, it's been fun so far. So once you've cut them out, get a little book. Some people will get it with spirals because it's easy to flip through, but something small that you can put in your bag or your purse or your backpack and just take it around with you. Because again, it's all about spending time with these photos and looking at them. Don't worry about the sequence. Don't worry about any of that stuff. And go from there. So once I bought the book, it motivated me a little bit more to start sequencing the photos. And I'm not gonna lie, I hesitated for a few days because in my mind I wanted it to be perfect. Like I knew the beginning, the middle, and the end of the story, but to be honest, I didn't. I knew a few ideas I had. I knew I liked a couple of photos together, but nothing was really speaking to me. And so I just said, Jasmine, you just gotta start taping some stuff down, and you can change it. You can always change it. So I started taping stuff in there, and yeah, I'm in that process right now. So I thought, at least if I can show someone else this part of it, maybe it'll help you get started. At least just get started, because that's always the hardest part. And enjoy the process while you're doing it. So I think there probably will be a part 2 where we go a little more into what happens after the sequencing. But yeah, that should do it. Good. Thanks for watching. This is just to get you started. So, there's so many different ways to make a zine, and this is just one of the ways that I have started, and hopefully you find something of interest in it, or it helps you as well. Let me know what you think about it in the comments, and I will see you guys next time in the next video. Thanks. Bye.